welcome to New Trials the podcast. I'm Preya.
And I'm Melanie.
The New Trials of Cardcaptor Sakura, Syaoran, and Friends is a popular ongoing fanfic by Wishluv, and it's based on Clamp's Cardcaptor Sakura. And in each episode, we'll do a deep dive of a new chapter. Let's get into it.
So I really have nothing to bring up from the last chapter. I just have a question for you. So
Ooh.
since this is a very music heavy chapter, did you ever play an instrument in school?
I had the same question for you. So my music history starts when let's see. Everybody had to play the recorder when they were in the third grade. So I went through that. But also in the third grade, I started playing piano only because my neighbor was a piano teacher and she approached my mother and say, "Hey, would your daughter be interested in piano?" And she was like, "Okay." And I did it from grade 3 all the way to grade 11. Thing is, though, it's like I wasn't really into it. I just went through the motions of going to the lessons, practicing, but there was never a passion or anything like that. And then when school started, I had music class. I played the flute, which I was horrible at. I couldn't get the thing to work. It was really bad. So then the second semester, I switched to xylophone, and because of my piano background, I really excelled at it. So flute, xylophone, no singing. Like in this chapter, they actually sing, but we never really did that in high school. How about you?
So like yourself, we had a whole recorder thing, but I think ours was fifth grade. I want to say we were a little bit older, but I was also not very good at it. And then also, I think it was about fifth or sixth grade as well, is when we could either choose to go into band or strings. And in my heart of hearts, I really wanted to go into strings, but all my friends were going into band. And like the little follower that I am, I had to follow them into band. And when I got there, I really wanted to play the saxophone. That's what I really wanted to play. But the band teacher wouldn't let me start with the saxophone. He's like, you have to start with the clarinet. And then once you play the clarinet for like, I think he said a year, then I could move on to the saxophone. So I was like, okay. And I hated the clarinet. I was so bad at it. And because I did not enjoy it, I think I only did band for 1 year and I didn't even like move on to saxophone because I lost any and all joy for any type of musical instruments after that. And of course, now looking back, I really kick myself because I really wish I would have went into strings because I am obsessed with violins and something I was going to bring up in this chapter. I love any and all songs that have a violin even remotely in it. And I really think that if I would have picked up a violin, I would have stuck with it because I love it so much. But hindsight's 2020 once you're 35, I guess.
Wow. No, it's so weird that the music teacher said that. Like, because when we started music in grade 7, we could like choose any instrument we wanted, and it was quite the variety. Yeah, there was flutes and clarinets, but there were also saxophones, there were also trombones, tuba. Yeah, one person played a baritone, not a tuba, but a baritone, and the trumpets. Yeah, trumpet, trombone, tuba. Because I sat in the back of the class, next to drums, and it was quite a nice little orchestra. And it's so sad that your teacher restricted you.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if it's just how they do it in America. I have no idea if there's like some type of sliding scale or if it was just how he decided to do it. But then in high school, I picked up choir and I excelled in choir. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm a decent singer. Like I can sing pretty decently well. And so, I had a couple solos and stuff in that. Like I'm not, you know, nearly good enough to be professional or anything like that, but I can carry a tune. And I really did love choir, but I feel in my heart of hearts, I really should have went into strings, but oh well.
Oh, yeah, well, we had the fun we had, and who knows, maybe it's something that she'll pick up in the future.
Right, maybe.
Today we'll be talking about Chapter 7, Melanie of Loneliness. The chapter was released in the winter of spring of 2000, and it's 11,077 words. So that's actually more than double than Chapter 6. Our characters are in the 8th grade. This chapter takes place between September or October. Now, on to the summary. In music class, Syaoran got in trouble for refusing to perform in front of the others. At home, Sakura saw her mother's violin and music compositions that Tuya brought up, and noticed that it was a gift from someone named Ryuren. Syaoran snuck into Sakura's bedroom to avoid Tuya, so he can get the jacket to retrieve his keys. He saw that the violin, which brought traces of pain in his eyes, and when Sakura mentioned Ryuren, Syaoran told her that it was his father's name. Syaoran played the piece, which left Sakura spellbound. Simultaneously, Sakura and Shoran and Kiro-chan were brought into the past, and this time they saw Nadeshiko and a stranger who looked a lot like Syaoran meeting in the daytime after he broke her fall when she fell out of a tree. While he figured out that she was the girl who was after the scroll, it wasn't until after he left when Nadeshiko realized who he was as well. At the end of the song, they return to the present. Sharon lets Sakura figure out that the man in the memories was his father, Lee Ryuren. The two got in a fight when Sakura asked Sharon why he was so closed, and he claimed that he would always be a lone wolf. Sharon goes to leave when he spots the teddy bear that he gave her, and tells himself that the two hearts are no longer joined. When Sakura told Meilin about Sharon's violin skills, Meilin mentioned Sharon's cousin, but let go of the subject when Sharon came in, as it caused painful memories. When the cousins were alone, Sharon and Meilin told Meilin that even though he was dead for 5 years, she shouldn't be talking about him. Sakura was looking for the scroll, and she couldn't find it, when she and Sharon were whisked back into time once more. They witnessed Nadeshiko confronting Ryuren, who was now a Seiju High School student. Ryuren played the same haunting piece that Sharon played for Sakura, and Nadeshiko joined in the second time with the harmony, making the song complete and heartwarming. Nadeshiko made her case about how two people needed to work together with the scroll. When she gave up on convincing him to work together and decided to give him her half, Moonstone showed up and stated how their delay caused the enemy to move ahead, so now they must work together. Back in the present, Sakura still could not find the scroll, and we learn that Aaron and Erica are in possession of it instead.
Oh, such a good chapter. It's one of my favorites for sure.
I was actually surprised when we started off at a new day in the timeline instead of picking up where we left off, like compared to chapter 5 to chapter 6. And I think like reading these chapters from like a week to week basis instead of just binge reading like we usually do, makes me feel closer to the natural movement of New Charles time.
Yeah, that's true because we are kind of in that same time frame in real life too, because it's fall,
Hmm.
for us as well. So yeah, it does feel like we're kind of immersing ourselves into the story.
The music teacher voice is my new favorite voice in your audiobook. I love the passion. I love the energy.
That band teacher I was talking about, that's who I was in the Navy.
It's like there's gotta be experience behind this.
I mean, my band teacher, he was a he and not a girl, but he had this baton thing. I don't know what it's called. And he would just rattle it constantly, and it'd make this sound.
Fun fact, in French, it's called a baguette.
Love that. Funny side story, we were watching Great British Baking Show and they kept talking about this gâteau. And I was like, why are they talking about a cat? And I couldn't figure it out.
Ah,
And
the
then my
downside of
husband
knowing languages.
and then my husband goes, no, gâteau means cake. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Wow. I've never made the connections between gato and gato. Wow.
Because I know a little bit of French, but Spanish is definitely my main wheelhouse. And I was like, what cat? Anyway.
Ah, cute. So this chapter, we finally have the introduction of Ryuren's name. And I know I said I was gonna like call him Ryuren, like I have the last past 20 years, but your audio chapter has converted me.
I noticed while you were reading the summary, I was like, yay! So I kind of got the impression that Toya kind of knew about Ryuren. What do you think?
Hmm. It's hard to say because when we think back of our the last time that Nadeshiko and Ryuren saw each other, it was when SNS were like 3-year-olds, and it was after a long time of not even seeing each other. So it's like, and Nadeshiko, as soon as she met Fujitaka, she kind of like dropped her whole life behind her. So I don't think Toya actually knows the story.
Yeah, I don't know if he necessarily knows the full story, but I think that he knew that their father wasn't her first love. I think he knew that much, I think, but the full encompassing story, I don't think he knew that.
Hmm. Yeah, well, we don't really get much of Toya in New Trials, especially since he's going to go on his trip like pretty soon.
Right, right.
I really like the scene when Syaoran climbed through Sakura's window. It's like I want a Syaoran to climb through my window. It's very
Uh,
quintessential 90s TV kind of moment. It's like usually Clarissa explains it all. She had her friend climb through the window all the time. Um, but even though I've never had anybody climb through my window, like a couple of months after I started dating my boyfriend, he was able to sneak past the because it's like a coded my condo was like you have to press the code and then you let the person buzz them in. So he was able to sneak through that. And so I wasn't expecting him, and he knocked on the door, and I opened it up, and he surprised me with dumplings, and it was really sweet.
I I'm slightly curious how he got around security. He's a Kai.
Yeah, seriously, it's not too hard. It's like when you're in the main entrance, and if there's other people going in at the same time, you just like follow the crowd. It's all about timing.
Well, the window scene, my brain went to Boy Meets World. Is where my brain went to because either Topanga would be constantly climbing through his window or Sean or so that's where my brain went with that scene. 90s still.
Yes, yes, yes. Especially, yeah, I think it's more Sean. He would climb through. Oh, actually, Sean would go to Corey's house to hide from whatever chaos he did, and then he would get out the window so that nobody would really see him.
Mm-hmm. Which,
Uh,
by the way, they're doing a rewatch podcast and it's absolutely amazing. If you're a fan of Boy Meets World, I highly recommend it.
yes, yes, I'm listening to it too. It's a really good podcast, and I think it's been 29 years since Boy Meets World wrapped. So, yeah, yeah, a bit older than New Trials, but
We'll get there eventually.
So I love, 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 love that you added violin music to your audiobook chapter. It's so enchanting. Now, how did you decide on the piece?
Okay, so this is a bit of a long-winded story, and I'm going to try and shorten it the best I can. So this song has always haunted me since the very first time I've ever read the story. Because, like I said, I love violin music. So for all these years, I've always have just kind of kept an ear out for any songs that I felt might make me think of this song. The only one that's ever gotten slightly close for me is a song that's called "The Lark Ascending" by Ralph Vaughan Williams. It's a beautiful piece, but it's like 15 long operatic type piece, but it's beautiful. But for the audiobook, I knew I couldn't use it because I had to find music that was royalty free. And so I kept trying to like look through royalty free music. I wasn't really finding anything. And then finally the day I recorded this chapter, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try just one last time to see if I can find a song that's even slightly close. If I can't find it, oh well, I'm sure our listeners will understand. So just one last ditch effort, I went onto YouTube on their royalty free music thing that they have, and I just typed in like sad violin, I think, and then this song popped up, and I started listening to it, and it was that single sad violin in the start, and I was like, man, this is perfect. And as I was listening to it, I was like, it would be even more perfect if a second violin was to come in and make it sound happy. And then all of a sudden it did. And Priya, when I tell you, I jumped out of my seat and I was like jumping because I was so excited because I was like, oh my God, I found one. I found one.
That is
I'm
a
pretty proud
wonderful
of it.
story. That is a wonderful story. I'm so proud of you.
It took everything in me not to tell you that I found it because I wanted you to be surprised, but because I just love sharing absolutely everything and anything with you. It took so much effort on my part not to be like, I found it, Priya.
Oh my gosh, that's how I feel about cosplays that I'm sitting on. It's like, I want to show Melanie, but I don't have all the pieces yet.
uh, so what did you think about the parallel of Nadesco falling from the tree and that's how she meets Ryurin? Well, meet, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Quintessential Nadeshiko. It's like we don't know a lot about her, considering that her character passed away. So, what fanfic authors used to do back in the day is that they would like gather up every speck of trivia that they knew about a character and they would just insert it in some way, shape, and form. So it's like there's the random fanfic about Kaho, and then there's always going to be an mention of it's like, oh yeah, I'm still disoriented. It's like I don't have a sense of direction because they told us that she has a bad sense of direction. And it's like Takashi and Chiharu, all of the stories, like you have Takashi great at math and Chiharu isn't great at math. So all of the little bits and pieces that we find out about the character in canon, fanfic authors will find a way to weave them in. So I think Nadeshiko falling and on top of Ryurin is like a nod to how she's going to meet her one true love. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything to add. Yeah. I think that covers it pretty well.
uh so we're in the past and I love how Nadeshiko and Ryun don't even recognize each other. I guess it must have been dark in Closed Mansion. Have you ever seen the movie You Got Mail?
Yes.
Yeah, it reminds me of like how the Tom Hanks character knew that the Meg Ryan character was like the one writing, but she didn't know. So it's like he had that extra information, that extra power, and he used it to get to his advantage. That's what that scene reminded me of.
It's one of those movies where you watch it as an adult and you're like, man, he was the true villain of this movie.
I mean, that never sat well with me. Never. It's like I like Tom Hanks, I like Meg Ryan, I like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movies, but I just You Got Mail always left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, if I want to watch Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, Sleepless in Seattle all the way.
Yes, yes, that's a gorgeous movie. I actually bought that movie while I was in Seattle.
Ah, perfect.
Yes, 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 yes. You have anything else to say about the flashback?
I don't.
Okay, so when Toya was standing outside of Sakura's room, listening to Syaoran play the whole time, does that mean that like time freezes when they do their adventure? Because in the present, the song doesn't end, but in parallel, they're in the past. How do you think that works out?
In true fashion, that went over my head. That is, oh, that is such a good question. Gosh, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I like considering that like like Toya was listening to the violin playing and he heard the whole piece as a whole and he walked away. I think like if they did get whisked, if they did pop out of like existence to go travel in the past, Toya would know something was up because then the violin would clatter on the ground. But I think this just proves that back in time is just happening in parallel as the present. Or it's like maybe it's like a Narnia kind of thing, where it's like you're gonna have two timelines going on at the same time. I, I think
Hmm.
I think it's more in that vein.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention that maybe like, even though they pop back to the past for what seems like a long period of time, in reality, it's only like a second or, one of those type of things would make sense. But that's such a good question.
And I don't think I've noticed that before.
Obviously, I didn't.
Now, I loved the moment when Sakura called out Syaoran for keeping his barrier between them. And it's like, she could have just went with the flow and like dealt with his mood swings as they came, but she really put herself out there to call him out.
Yes, again, I feel like this is character development on Sakura's part by Wish-chan because I feel like in the original anime, I feel like, her being a 10-year-old, she probably would have just been like, oh, he's just being moody, but I'm sure he has something going on and he'll get better. But now that she's a teenager, she's like, hey, you're being a butt and I'm going to call you out on it because that's not cool.
And Sharon, I'm a lone wolf. Is like, okay, emo kid.
That's what I was going to say. Angsty teenage boy.
The epitome.
Yes.
So this chapter gives us the first mention of Lei Yun. I forgot that it got foreshadowed in Neutral so soon.
I was going to mention the same thing because when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, he was mentioned even clear back here, which is just insane.
Yeah, I also don't remember Sakura and Sharon losing the scroll so soon. It's like when that happened, I'm like, well, easy come, easy go.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that too because I could have swore they had it at least for a couple more chapters. And I think it comes back at some point, I want to say.
Yes, I think it's Kaiju Magician who gives it back to them in Arc 2.
Okay, yeah, that's ringing a bell. Yeah.
So we have Ryurin and Nadeshiko running into each other at school, and I feel that now they're both students that the playing ground is more even.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I think it kind of humanizes them both to each other in a way because they realize there isn't this big age gap. Because when she first met him, she thought he was maybe just a couple years older than her, but she couldn't tell. And at least now that feeling is validated. There was also a mention in this part of the flashback of a girl with auburn hair. Do you think that's foreshadowing of Miata, Kai's mom?
Ooh, that went over my head, but now that you mention it, I'm gonna say yes. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, because Miho, Miara, it's like even Kai's natural hair, or Mikei's natural natural hair, it was all auburn brown. And Miara did have a crush on Rira, that's for sure. That's canon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And this was also kind of the first mention of the dark ones too,
yes.
sort of, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, well, it's like when Moonstone is like, "Yep, the enemy's got it because you two aren't doing your job." Hey, did you remember Moonstone's electrocuting ability? Because I sure didn't.
Not at all. Our little binary queen, I did not remember that.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, Moonstone. It's like, where was that hiding?
Maybe that's the chain dark powers.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. But what this chapter or this flashback really gave us was like a nice bonding moment between Nadeshiko and Ririn. It really helped turn the corner to their partnership. What I noticed is that that Ririn's mood swings are just as bad as Sharon's.
Oh my God. 100%.
It's like now I have Katy Perry's Hot and Cold in my head.
I really want to ask Wish Chan when Viren's birthday is because I swear he's a Gemini. He's got to be. And I can tease about that because I'm married to a Gemini.
Aquarius here and dating a Libra.
Well, and I'm not showing my very good Virgo-ness because I keep missing these small facts that keep going over my head. But one thing I did not like is that it was almost kind of insinuated to me, and I'm curious how you felt about it, that it was almost made to be Nadesco's fault about them not like working together and like if she was apologizing to him and she started crying because she felt like it was her fault. But as I was reading that, I was like, girl, it is not your fault, it's his fault. It's 100% his fault. If he wouldn't have been the butt, like, hello, you guys would have been working with each other like 3 days ago or whatever it was. So that kind of didn't sit right with me.
The thing is, though, Nadeshiko has compassion that will get her there to that moment. Ryuren does not. So I think in this scenario, Nadeshiko knows that she's like already by default the bigger person.
Well, and I know Sakura would have responded the exact same way too, So talk about, mirroring parents' mood swings and feelings.
No, for sure, because it's like Ririn comes from this like really strict background of it's like, nope, I've got one goal and there's no detours, gotta go straight through it. Whereas Nadeshiko is like, I think she's definitely more ready to connect on a human level. And I think this is what got her there.
Okay. Okay.
I I really love the backstory that Wish Chan made to explain why Syaoran is as like the cold 10-year-old that he was when we met in CCS. Malin did a really good job of describing it's like, yeah, when Syaoran was this age, he was like that, and then he was like that, and then when his cousin died, he was like that. That really ushers in the Syaoran that we get to know when Cardcaptor Sakura first starts.
For sure. I think it explains a whole lot about him. And again, it's character development on Wish Chan's part, like letting us understand and kind of expanding his past to us too, which I think is just fascinating. She's just such a good author.
Chapter pretty much closes with Aaron and Erica with the scroll. It's a shame that Sakura loses it so soon, but like as we discussed before, she'll get it back.
Yep. Yep.
uh, uh, in your audiobook version of the chapter, I just can't get over I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it again. But the violin, Deshiko and Ryuren are playing together, and then everything comes at like the two things comes at one. It's just so beautiful to listen to, and I urge everyone. It's like if you've just been listening to the podcast and you haven't checked out the audiobook chapter yet, this is the one to listen to.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know I've said it's a couple chapters, but I really am truly so proud of this chapter. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Do you have anything else to say about the chapter?
I do not.
Okay, moving on. Okay, no dark forces were captured in this chapter. Moving on, we're going to talk about the fan art spotlight. The piece that I've chose was Violin by Asume, aka Maria. So Maria, she drew so many fan arts for New Trials that Wish Chen personally called her the New Trials, unofficial New Trials illustrator. There's a lot of pieces by her on DeviantArt. And speaking of which, she was actually the one who approached me to save all of the floating around fan arts inside DeviantArt. So it's really thanks to her that we have a directory where everything is there before it all got disappeared on GeoCities.
Oh, that's so cool. I did not know that. Well, thank you, Maria, for being amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a really nice piece of Syaoran with the violin. Autumn leaves definitely reflects where we are in New Trials.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with that background. It's so pretty. Kind of looks like the Canadian maple leaf.
Yes. Okay, we can move on to author's notes.
All right. So we have Wishchan. Whee! I'm so glad that I got over with the last 3 chapters. Okay, now on with the action. Remember the picture with Toya playing the violin? One of my favorites of him. Part of the idea that Nadeshiko played the violin came from that. Also, there was the anime episode Sakura and the Calendar of Memories or something like that, where cute little Toya plays piano with Nadeshiko, and they say that Nadeshiko was good at composing music. Toya played a beautiful piece, which Nadeshiko composed. Yep, I fall for guys who are musically talented. Syaoran, good at violin. Doesn't he look like he will be? Though he sucks at the recorder. Oh yeah, Ryuren. Sorry, Noriko from Fushigi Yugi just took his real name, Chao Ryuren, and stuck an R in the middle to make it 7 letters like Syaoran. And one of Syaoran's sister's name is Fanren. I was going to change the name, but got lazy. Is my interpretation of Nadeshiko kind of different from the gentle, beautiful, clumsy woman she is? You'll see. Oh yeah, no more flashbacks to the past. For a while, I think. What's with the harmony thing? I don't know. Somewhere I heard this piece where by itself it sounded rather gloomy, yet played with the harmony to it, it was a really beautiful piece. Just to get the point across, in this chapter, loneliness might seem beautiful, yet together you can find true happiness and even greater beauty. Oh yeah, sorry the chapters are so long. I'll try to make them shorter from now on. Comments at our email. One more thing, confusing flashbacks of Syaoran's childhood, right? I'm making a fanfic about his life called The Voice of the Wolf, just reference to that.
Okay, one thing I want to say about Nadeshiko in New Trials and Nadeshiko as we know her. Clark Kent, Superman, anybody?
So very true. So very true.
Voice of the Wolf. Is that the one that she still hasn't released?
Correct. I think Voice of the Wolf is Wolf. I can never say that correctly. Voice of the Wolf, I think it's kind of like Twilight, but from Edward's perspective. So I think it's NT, but from Syaoran's perspective.
So the log line is Syaoran's POV backstory of the Lee clan and how he came to go to Japan to capture the Clo cards, becoming Sakura's rival then friends. Yep. One day with Jen, we're very patient.
Yes. I mean, we could just keep this podcast just going on and on. We'll get to like the Great Five. We'll get to Kaido's backstory. We'll get there. We'll get there.
You have anything else to say?
Did you ever watch Fushigi Yugi?
No.
Oh, it's so good. Highly recommend that one. That is a very, very, very good one. But no, I'm good.
You have been listening to New Trials the podcast, where it must rain for there to be a rainbow.
You've been listening to New Trials the podcast. Please be sure to check us out anywhere you can find podcasts such as Anchor and Spotify and YouTube. We also now have a Google account where you can send us an email at ntthepod@gmail.com. Please be sure to send us all your chapter discussion questions so that we may bring them up in the podcast. Also be sure to check out the Facebook fan page for New Trials where you can send us discussion questions and where most of our discussions happen nowadays. And then be sure to join us next week where we talk about Chapter 8, The Angel of Hallows Eve.